Okay,
Yeah.
so hello everyone. The time is 8 o'clock. We're going to just take a few minutes before we start. We're just going to give people a few minutes to come in. This is Careers with Donella. Really excited tonight. I have a great special guest. I have Denise Dudley. She is the founder of SkillPath Seminars. She'll talk about that when she started that. She's a speaker and an author of a book called Work It, which we're going to get into. Hi, Denise. How are you?
I am great. How are you doing tonight?
Great. Great. So let me just add into our slide because I want everyone to see all your information. This is the fun part when people go, oh, you can tell it's live.
What is she doing?
Yeah. So again, everyone, thank you for joining. My name is Donella Tillery. You can connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm a resume writer. I'm an employment coach. I love books like this, Work It, which is why I was so happy that Denise was available. And let me just go to Denise a second. Denise, I'm going to give you a solo. And again, Denise, welcome to the show. Welcome
Thank you
to
so much.
Great.
It's a
Thanks for
pleasure.
having me. So we're just going to go into a couple of things. So first, just starting off with you, no pressure, even though we already talked. Tell us a little bit about your background.
All right. So I'm actually a clinical psychologist by official training. So that goes way back in time. And I actually began my career as the clinical director of a corporation of psychiatric hospitals. But I moved from there fairly quickly, I guess I'd say, to the world of professional speaking, really because I love it. I love doing presentations. I love working with people. I love teaching classes. So I became a professional speaker on the road after I was a clinical director. And then eventually I founded SkillPath Seminars, which grew to become the world's largest public training company. So that's it in a nutshell. It's a pretty quick little synopsis of a very long life because I'm really old. I'm 120 years old, actually.
Well, I'm like 95. So
Oh yeah, there you go.
yeah. We're on the same thing. And we have to I want to just give a shout out. You already have your first chat. Hi, Kizzy.
Hey.
Kizzy, thanks for joining again. Kizzy joins.
Hi, Kizzy.
So I wanted to we went into a little bit about SkillPath. But tonight I wanted to kind of take it into your book, Work It. Mm-hmm. And one of the things for me, let me just show SkillPath for a minute. I'm so excited with this. Thanks.
All right.
A little bit about SkillPath again. And we're going to go now into your book, Work It. So you actually became an author of this book. So tell us what inspired you to actually start this book?
Well, so in my speaking career, first of all, I've written a lot of books. Many of them I've ghostwritten just because of SkillPath. And I also wrote the programs at SkillPath. And I did a lot of writing while I was at SkillPath. Actually, in my former career as clinical director, I also wrote. So I've been writing for a long time. And writing isn't really something that comes too hard for me other than the old sit down and do it part. That's always hard because it's not that fun to write a book in a sense. But so I was teaching I'm doing a lot of work on college campuses and university campuses in the area called career readiness now, teaching young people about interview skills, how to walk into an interview, what to wear, how to sit, how to stand, resumes themselves, although I usually let other people handle the actual physical writing of a resume portion of career readiness. So I'm usually coming in and talking about communication, your eye contact, these sorts of things. So I've done a lot of these talks on campuses, and almost without fail, I would get people coming up to me afterward, both professors and students, saying, can you recommend a book? I want to continue down this line of learning. And with all respect to all the other books out there, I don't want to be dissing in somebody else's book, but I couldn't find one I liked. I really couldn't. It just seemed like they were either just too academic or pedantic, kind of just stuffy. I just knew no young person's going to read this if it's just all this statistical analysis about whatever. And so I thought I really want to write a book that's approachable, that I believe in, of course, that I think is worth reading, and that's maybe a little bit more fun to read, hopefully. Oh, you have a copy there.
Yeah,
you know what? I have one too. It's like shameless advertising, right? No, it's not shameless advertising. It's because everybody out there, I had to get my own book out and look at it before I got the interview, because I thought, what did I say in this book? So that I would be remembering what I wrote. But anyway, I wrote the book, and I decided that it would be a resource I would be able to recommend to young people, and know that I was providing something that I believe was strong and doable and wasn't going to send them down the wrong path. And by the way, this is really an act of love, in that literally 100% swear to God, all of my royalties go back to educational programs for young people. I decided to make it a thing that's not a profit maker for me. It's just something I am really doing out of love.
Wow, that's amazing. And I have to say another shout out. You're getting them already, Denise. This is Catherine Bell from North
Hey,
Carolina. Hi,
hey, Catherine.
Catherine.
Hi, Catherine.
I don't know if you can see that. She specializes in helping women learn how to defend themselves.
Nice.
I like
Very
you
good.
already, Catherine. Make sure we link up. That's a big
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah. Important. Very important.
That's great. So, Denise, I want to go a little bit into the book,
Mm-hmm.
especially with this being on LinkedIn. And let me just switch to a slide. So, for those of you who haven't read the book, what I personally like about the book, Denise, again, it was very refreshing. It was very straightforward. And I remember many moons ago when I was younger, again,
Before you were 95, I think you
yeah, so
said.
now I'm
Yes.
95. But this is the kind of book that I wished helped me when I started working in corporate. Because, and the reason why I wanted to do this with you, because people, I think times have changed where people think this is how I am, tell it how it is.
Mm-hmm.
And what I try to tell a lot of people that I work with, you have to pay your rent. You have family, you have responsibilities. So that may be great on social media, but the reality is you have to work with people every day.
Yep.
So I thought your book was really great, and we just wanted to highlight a couple of chapters if you can share, a little more into it. And the first thing I thought relevant for LinkedIn was social media, posting about your boss or job, because I see that all the time. Everyone on social media, everyone's saying, "Well, tell that job you don't want it. Tell that job you do want it, or just tell your boss this." Can you kind of tell us some real world thoughts about that in the book?
You bet. From having run SkillPath, but also just being out in the world myself a lot and working with, I consult and train so many organizations where I'm on the inside these days. And so I can tell you that my best piece of advice to young people or anybody who's thinking about posting about your work or your boss on social media is think twice before you do it. And the other part of what I want to say that you and I talked about before we came on the air was that I really would like to recommend that you not only say the obviously awful stuff that my job sucks and I can't stand my boss and I wish I had another one. Those things are going to come back. They'll come back and bite you. They really will. It's not as if HR or the boss herself or himself isn't looking at social media as well.
Right.
We're all on it right now. And so they're going to find it and no one's going to feel good about it. But my other suggestion is think twice about even saying really nice stuff. I love my boss or I love my job because here's what can happen. Things get a little rough and you stop talking about how much you love your job. And it's almost like the absence of any kind of information becomes the same as negative. It'll be
Right.
like, well, why did she stop talking about me? And it usually is related to the fact that somehow you got into some kind of a tiff with somebody or things aren't going as well or you didn't get your raise. Now you go dark, you go silent, and it sounds loud even though it's silent. So my recommendation is really talk about other stuff. Talk about your dog, your puppy, your friends, your family, whatever. But I think talking about your job on social media or especially your boss is not a good idea, really, I'd say.
And it's really, and two, maybe you can insight, like sometimes I had Lisa Taylor Hunley on here. We're talking about how do you approach talent managers and things like that. Because you work in SkillPath, you're teaching that. Can you share any suggestions? Like, how do I, I'm looking for a new job, but I'm still working.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe some insights on how to, maybe I want to look for a job online, be professional, still keep my job. I think I ask all coaches that.
Yes, that's a tough one because sometimes the first thing I think you have to do with the job you still have is
Mhm.
to do a really good kind of a quiet survey to yourself, maybe to some of your best friends whom you can trust in the job that you're currently in, and take a realistic survey of whether you think that the organization you're currently working for is one that is going to be perfectly okay with you looking for another job, or whether you are suddenly going to become persona non grata because they realize, all right, fine, you're no longer, this. We've all worked for those kind of companies, I'm sure, where
Right.
it turns out that you're looking for a job and it's like, fine, you don't like us anymore. Great. Okay. Well, now we're going to put you in a corner and we're going to make life unhappy. And so you don't really want to do anything that makes your life more difficult in the job you have, because you might need it. You might not go get another job. So I think sometimes it's important to make sure that you are in a position to start. If you're looking publicly with talent management, if you're putting something out on LinkedIn, for instance, which we all love, thank goodness for LinkedIn, but putting something out there that says, yeah, I'd be interested in something new, might not be the best idea. Now, there are other organizations promote growth even away from themselves. I know many. I work up in Silicon Valley a lot, and there are many places that are very cool about it, but some are not. So being super cautious before you start. And then if it turns out that you think this could be career suicide in the job I have currently, I would actually be quiet about it. It's surreptitious and it's not completely upfront, but there are times when you really have to protect yourself. And so then it would involve trying to come across a talent manager and saying, and also, by the way, they get it. If they're doing this for a living, they get it. And so all you have to really say is, look, this is really a confidential search. I'd like to send you my resume. I'd like to just get connected to you. And I would appreciate this if you could make it confidential for now. And a lot of talent managers are totally willing to do that. But I would be careful before I just stuck something out there that said, look at me.
Open to hire.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, looking for a better job. Oh, that would go for really big.
Right. So. Yeah, I tell people be very careful with that.
Yeah.
Use the recruiter button on LinkedIn. I always tell people that's a tip. Use it into recruiters.
Yeah.
I love that feature.
Absolutely.
So I wanted, and this was really good. Find chapter 7. Again, everyone, we have the book here. I wanted to talk about find balance with assertive communication, because a lot of times what I tell clients, I'll say, I need you to be assertive, not aggressive. Exactly. And I think that's just a really fine balance. Especially when you're working with different group types. Now we have the DEI, like when I was talking with Jermaine Stanley, it's so many different people we're working with. And I don't know if you can share a little bit about that and talk about, talk a little bit more about that chapter. Just give me a few highlights.
Absolutely. So I happen to love assertiveness doctrine in general. And, way back when, because you and I are so old that we know.
Right?
We're not that old, everybody. We're young. We're young, hot things. Actually. But anyway, but back, actually, even honestly, before you and I were adults in the work world, assertiveness training was something that was really popularized in about the 1960s and 1970s in particular. And I still believe, no matter what, then it sort of fell out of fashion because then we went out and talked about other things. I still believe it's some of the most important doctrine in the world. And I still teach it. And in classes that I do that are usually week-long communication classes, we spend a good long time talking about assertiveness and what it means. And so to briefly identify the different styles, there's passive. So passive people, if we looked at how they are behaving, usually we see an avoidance of eye contact. We see voice tone that's a little bit too quiet, and voice loudness where we can't quite hear them. We hear self-effacing phrases such as, oh, me, no, I'm nobody, or, oh, I didn't really do that good a job, or here comes Jermaine, just hopped in and said hi, I think, so hello. So we passive people tend to allow their rights to be violated. Now, why would they do that? There are lots of reasons why. So we have to almost go back to what's the reason. I am allowing my rights to be violated as a passive person because, I'm not as educated as you are. I'm not as pretty as you are. I'm not as rich as you are. I'm not as, it's one of these putting myself in a one down position. But from there comes not only my feelings of inadequacy, but comes behaviors that look self-effacing, that look like I am really putting myself down. You would never see me stepping up to the front and volunteering to chair a committee or something. I would be staying in the background. That's passive, thumbnail sketch. Aggressive, let's look at aggressive people. So now I am out there violating your rights, and I'm not letting my rights be violated. I'm out there violating your rights. It's kind of like the best defense is an offense. Like I'm just going to come at you before you can get me. Why would that be? Oh, because I'm bigger than you are, because I have a better education, because I'm smarter than you are. So I internalize this feeling of superiority. And from there comes this whole set of behaviors, totally inappropriate, by the way. But I think I can legitimize my behavior by my belief that I have more rights than you do. So from there, we see things like louder voice tone, voice loudness. We see phrases like, I want you to do this, rather than, will you please do this? We see
Right.
people making, now this time, glaring eye contact, leaning forward, body language that comes into your space. So aggressive, people who are taking the opportunity to violate the rights of others. So the third, of course, is assertive. Now, by the way, there's passive aggressive in there, and people sometimes want to talk about passive aggressive, but I
Right.
always tell people passive aggressive is aggressive. It's just another form of
Yeah.
aggressive. It's a going in through the back door to be aggressive. It's
Right.
acting like I'm nice, but then getting you in the end.
Right.
but assertive. So assertive means, excuse me, that I'm going to respect my rights and your rights. I'm going to make sure that neither one of us has our rights violated. And I'm going to do it every single day of my life. I'm going to do it in all of our interactions. I'm going to make sure that what I do is I take into consideration who you are, what you need, what your needs are, and I also take into consideration my own needs at the same time. And from there comes a beautiful set of behaviors. Such as, now you see me smiling more. You see eye contact that is inclusive, that's friendly, that isn't aggressive. You see me saying things like, how can we work together to resolve this thing? Or you hear me giving credit to other people. Oh, I didn't do that. That was Martha. She's the one who deserves all the credit in this particular meeting today. So we see people who are cooperative. We see people who share the limelight, who share the bounty of life by being kind and good to other people. So 3 sets of response styles. So now to go back to your question, there are times when people get mixed up about what they're doing. For
Right.
one thing, people can get very mixed up and mistake passivity for politeness, or
Yes.
politeness for passivity. That's the way they get mixed up and go, oh, I'm just being nice. I just go
Yeah.
along to get along. I just don't want to stir it up. When really they're being passive. They think they're being polite, but they're really being passive. And by the way, if you ask people what it's like to be around a passive person, most people, the passive person thinks, oh, I'm so easy to be with. But people will often report, it's frustrating. I
You
want to
said it
hear
nicer
more.
than I did.
Yep,
I
exactly.
just,
Yeah.
yeah, just dealing with that. I'm like, tell me what you want. What should we do on this
Yes.
report? Like, let's get it over with.
Yes, exactly. We hear from so many people, like, I'm around a passive person and they think they're being nice and they're driving me nuts. I just want to know. I want you to give me an answer, to speak up, to make a decision, please. So then
Right.
the other thing that I was talking about, you asked the question, is that people can often mistake aggressiveness for assertiveness, assertiveness for aggressiveness, that we sometimes think, okay, now that I'm assertive, I'm going to go tell my boss what I've always thought of her. I'm going to go tell my ex-landlord what I think of him.
Right.
And that's not being assertive. That's being aggressive. It's being aggressive to lay it all out there, to just tell it like it is.
Right.
It's not nice. And so even when we are trying to express ourselves, even our anger, our dissatisfaction, something that occurred that's unpleasant that we need to untangle, we do it assertively by saying, if you have a moment, I would really appreciate speaking with you. When we talked the other day on the floor of the hospital, you yelled at me in a way that was very embarrassing to me. I would appreciate it if you would speak to me privately and you would keep your voice at a normal voice tone when you talk to me. So that's how we talk to people. We never go, you did this and I want that. That's aggressive. So people get these things mixed up. They definitely do.
It's so true. Oh, in a perfect world, Denise.
I know. So do I.
The things
I
that happen
do.
in corporate.
Yes,
That's
I
why I'm
know.
doing
I agree. I agree. Oh, it can be tough, to kind of keep on keeping on, as we say.
Yes. And I
Oh,
like it, and I like chapter 8 too. Gaining power without sacrificing your integrity. I thought that was a nice segue into the communication. So I just wanted you
mhm.
to talk a little bit about that too, because that's a big
Absolutely.
thing about selling out and all that, and or doing too much, like you said, doing too much or not
Yes.
doing enough. So
Yes. Yeah. So I feel like it's very important as we're developing ourselves and growing and learning, that yes, we want to gain more power. I would like a promotion. I would like to manage more people. I would like to
mhm,
manage more organizations, perhaps if I've got a multi-organizational company going. So we all want to gain power, maybe for lots of reasons, because we would like more money, we want a higher salary,
right,
or we really want to manage more people because we enjoy managing people. But it's really important, and I believe in my heart that you can call it karma, you can call it whatever you want to call it, but that sooner or later, if we sacrifice our integrity one way or another by telling mean stories about somebody in order
Mhm.
to get them fired so that I can get their job, or
Yeah.
by spreading rumors because that way because rumor mongering is technically aggressive for one thing, and it's not good for the health of the organization, and it's also not good for your soul, by the way. It's just not good for you to play in that world, and any types of things that we're doing that sacrifice our integrity, I believe, come back to get us one way or another. First of all,
Yeah.
the world has got billions of people on it. I don't even know how many billions of people live
Right.
on this earth now, but it's not that big. It can
Yeah.
come back
Especially
and
with work
get you.
remote. Yeah.
Exactly. Work-related stuff. You just can't afford to burn a bridge. You can't. And you shouldn't, because you should be a nice person. But if you don't have that inside of you, the ethics that it takes to be a good person, then at least know that you start burning bridges at one organization, or you say mean things, or whatever it is you do, it will come back to get you eventually. Somebody out there is someday you're going to walk right in and see the boss that you now have at a new job, and it's the person you screwed back there, and it's not a good idea to take that chance. So making sure you don't sacrifice your integrity, that you stay honest, that you stay forthright, that you remember to respect the rights of other people, whether they're your employees or your boss or your coworkers, and that you remember to do all you can really to help others as well, even if they aren't even related to the job you have. Why not help the person in the parking lot walking in with a bundle of things that they can't carry, even if they're not in your department? Why would you not just be that nice person? Why would you not help somebody who just can't figure out how to work the photocopier, even if you'll never see them again?
Right.
Just do those things that leave you feeling like a kind and good and ethical person. It's good for your soul, and it's good for your career.
And I agree with that, because people are always talking about, oh, you have to have your personal brand.
Uh-huh.
And just, one of the things my mother always said, just because other people were terrible doesn't mean I have to be terrible. And
That's right.
sometimes you do take a loss from that. But overall, if people know, like sometimes I'll actually get old coworkers as clients. And
Yeah.
I just was like shocked. And I was like, that shows them what they thought of me during that time. And it was like, so 10 years ago, and I've gotten
Mhm.
clients from that. So it is hard. And I think sometimes it is difficult. I try to tell people when I'm coaching them, and you have to work through it, but you got to think of the long game. And that's why I
Yes.
thought this was the great. So going
Yeah.
into that, we want to talk about the fine art of managing.
All right. Yes. So there are
Good luck.
times, and this book goes through it for people who are just starting to manage, because it's not like you can wake up one day and be an instant manager. And there are classes and seminars. SkillPath teaches them. I wrote a bunch of them, actually.
Yeah.
And going to a seminar and learning about management is important, but it's not an instant skill. And so a lot of times we find ourselves in a position in our careers where you just graduated, so to speak, from working on the floor to managing the people who are on the floor. You became the manager, and you may not have been prepared for that. You may not have taken a class in it. And so what do you start doing? Also, being promoted to be the manager of the people you formerly were co-workers with can be
Mhm.
a very tricky thing to work through, because
Yes.
we want to make sure, and that's in the book too, that we want to make sure that we always respect everyone, no matter who they are, and that we listen to them, and that we're kind to them, and that we respect what their point of view is. But also, at the point you become a manager, it's your job to make decisions. It's your job possibly to make decisions that not everybody will love. And it's your job
Right.
also to know that just because the person yesterday was your best friend, and they can still be your friend, there's not a problem. But if they come to you and go, really, I don't want you to do that, you may need to do it anyway. It becomes a slightly different position to be in. So the art of managing is, if I were to say, well, what's my most important point about managing? It
Mhm.
wouldn't be, of course you need to be organized. Of course you need to have a plan. Of course you need to set goals. You need to do all those things, but it comes back down to communication. The most important thing, I believe, as a good manager is to be an excellent communicator, to keep your mouth open and in gear and tell people what you want, what you don't want, when things are going right, when things need to be corrected. And the more you talk and the more you do keep your mouth open and in gear, the more people will become used to hearing you leading them. So I think a lot of times if you only, one of my jokes I make is that if you're a manager, your employees should recognize your voice when you're in the produce department of the grocery store buying lettuce. They should be able to turn around and go, "Hey, it's you," because
Right.
they should hear your voice enough that they know you. And the way that you really do want to give feedback is by doing it frequently and making sure that the positive feedback far outweighs the negative feedback. Far more important to tell people when they're doing a great job and that you appreciate them than it is to be letting them know when things aren't going right. And in fact, when you need to let them go, things aren't going to know that things aren't going right. It'll go a whole lot better if you've already been telling them when things are going right. You'll be a more approachable person.
That's great. And I'm just looking through the chat. I just sent, Kizzy, I don't know if you saw
Yes.
it. Yeah.
Oh, to be kind. I agree, Kizzy. Be kind. I always said if I could have one of those glamour license plates, which I don't have and I wouldn't, but mine would say, be kind. That's my message. Just be kind. I just wish everyone were kind. I just can't emphasize it enough. Let's
Right.
see. Come back to you. Oh yeah. Yes. What you put out into the universe. I agree, Jermaine. It does. You put it out there, it comes back. I don't know if it's karma, if it's magic, if it's a God watching over us, or if it's just us creating our own reality too. I wonder sometimes, like I said, it's good for your soul to be a good person. Well, also, if I'm a bad person, I feel like I'm walking around and my soul knows it. And it's just like, oh yeah, you have not been a nice person here. So yeah, I agree with you.
Now, I want to switch gears just a teeny bit before we close out,
Sure.
because you're the founder of SkillPath Seminars,
Mhm.
and you did sell it. And I think sometimes there's entrepreneurs on LinkedIn, so I don't know if you can share some insight on building a respected organization. Like that
Yeah.
was just really impressive. If you could share that with people.
Absolutely. So founding SkillPath, I had already worked for another seminar company that was similar to SkillPath. And
Hmm.
so I'd worked as a professional speaker for that organization. Then I came to the inside of it and I became the vice president of faculty curriculum and publications. So I already knew a bit about working inside of a seminar company. But I went and founded SkillPath Seminars, and I did start it with nothing. So
Hmm.
not only did I need to develop the programs and
Oh, wow.
hire speakers, and I'd also trained a lot of speakers in the faculty department at the other company. So I already knew how to train speakers, hire speakers, develop programs, write workbooks, not a problem. But all the other things that made up a seminar company had to be created from scratch. Customer service scripts, or even before the customer service script, the actual form that needed to be filled out when someone called to enroll in a seminar. Everything that became SkillPath was invented, and that we didn't have. There was no like go online and buy forms for a seminar
Right, right.
company. So it's like it don't
Yeah.
exist. So you do it. So I of course I grew SkillPath with the help of so many people, and those
Mhm.
people are still my friends to this very day. In fact, I just talked to two of them yesterday, and I'm going to see one in about a month. And so they are my friends, and they are the people who made me successful. So hiring the right people and then making sure that I gave them autonomy was
Mhm.
really important. Making sure they're the right people first. You don't give autonomy to somebody who's going to run off to outer
Right.
space and do it wrong. So
Yeah.
once you've found the right kind of people, then letting them run it. And one of the jokes kind of at SkillPath was that everyone who had a department, whether that was faculty or curriculum or publication or publishing or any of the other things, we really wanted them to run it as if they owned that business, as if it were
Mhm.
a business that they owned within a company. And so we really gave autonomy, and of course gave a lot of praise. Said you get all the credit you could possibly have because you have made this successful. So for me, it was finding the right people, trusting them, giving them autonomy, making sure that they were supported and that they had what they needed. And SkillPath exploded. At the point I sold it, it was 200 million a year in sales, 800
Mhm.
trainers, about 350 employees, and we owned two buildings that we started out in, one of them renting. So it grew and grew and grew. And it was finally time to sell it. People asked me about selling it. Well, of course, it's sometimes if you're a business person, you really want to take your money off the table. And so selling it, of course, then really removes the risk of having all your money tied up in a company. So that's truthful, and that's a reality. And I wouldn't pretend like that wasn't part of it, but really it was because, and then you and I talked about this before we went on the air, SkillPath is, I often refer to SkillPath as my firstborn.
Right.
Now, I have 2 human children who came along later, and they love to pretend that they hate that joke, but it's sort of true. SkillPath was my firstborn, and then I had humans later, and I
Right.
still think of it as my firstborn. And so what you want to do for any of your children, including SkillPath, is to put them into a position to be safe and well cared for, because I will not be on this earth forever, because I am 120 years old, as I told you. So I expect to live about another 100 years, and then I won't be here. So I wanted to make sure that I could ensure, to the best of my ability, the health and safety of the future of my company. So that's why I sold it. And I sold it to an organization, a college, and I trusted them to do the right thing. They didn't always do the right thing, which is too bad, but you do your best to try to find the right buyer. I want to add one thing, and that is that I met somebody who sold his company. He's a different kind of a person. I won't say who he is. He's not famous, but he'd be somebody a lot of people might know. And I'd sold my company, he'd sold his. And we were just chatting about commonality. And I was talking about, oh yeah, I sold it, but I'm still on the board of directors. I still go back there multiple times per year. I spend weeks in there. I help with everything I possibly can, from staffing to writing new programs, everything else. And he looked at me and he said, "You're a fool." He said, "I sold it. I got out. I won't look back. I don't want anything to do with it."
Wow.
And it made me really sad, because for me personally, it was the people. It wasn't, I would have never abandoned the people. They're my friends. They are people I care for. And I just thought his attitude was really shocking. And so for entrepreneurs out there who are thinking of selling their organization, I firmly believe, back to the be kind thing, that you don't just sell your people out. You find the appropriate buyer and you support them all you can, even though you are no longer making 1 penny from that organization. That's what's the right thing to do.
So it's like your legacy. Yeah, your legacy.
It is. Yeah, yeah.
So I want to just close out. This is great. I was just looking at, I think everybody's so engaged.
Oh, I wish we could do this forever.
I know.
Lots of topics.
Yeah. So now the fun question. So now you're busy, but what are you reading?
What am I reading?
Yes.
Wow.
Or
so
something
there,
that you love that you've read in the past.
Okay. So yes. So actually, I wish I could turn my camera right now, because I have a library shelf that's, you kind of wouldn't believe it. And that's just, I also have a library room where I've got books too. I love to read books. I read also on Kindle, because I don't want to kill trees any more than anyone else does. But I also love the feeling of taking a book outside and just sitting down and reading. I do love to read. So this is like, I don't even necessarily want to tell everybody to read this book, but it's a really great book. I'm rereading a book by E.O. Wilson, and it's called Consilience. And the subtitle of Consilience is Toward a Unification of Knowledge. And so what Wilson sets out to do, I read it before and I'm reading it again. He sets out, he just passed away recently, by the way. He was an entomologist. That's basically an insect guy, and he was an expert on ants. He studied ant colonies, but he also wrote a lot about human nature and things. And Consilience sets out to bring together science, religion, philosophy, the hard sciences such as chemistry, whatever, medical things, and the soft sciences, sociology, psychology, social work, those sorts of philosophy. And his whole premise is that really, if it's truth, it's truth. And rather than the disciplines arguing about it, maybe we should figure out what the common theme is and work together on it. So it's kind of an academic book, but I kind of like it. I just sort of who I am. So I also read funny books and whatever else. So, but right now it's a kind of a heavy book I'm rereading. Thanks for asking. Oh, what about you? What are you reading? Now I want to know what you're reading.
I'm reading Work It. I'm reading, let's see. I'm actually reading Life-Changing Workshops. I don't know if people could see that.
I see it.
Training, yeah. So things like that. I'm into the self-help, but
cool.
But on the other end, I was going to ask you, what are you watching? Because like tonight, I'm going to watch the season finale of Boys, The Boys.
Oh, nice. Oh,
And I
that's
have to
totally
ask
fun.
you, what do you like to watch?
Oh man. Okay. Well, I just did finish Severance, which everyone was talking about.
My brother keeps telling me to watch it. He loves
Oh,
it.
it's good. It's very, oh man, it's pretty grim. You're not going to laugh a lot in it, but it
Mhm.
does definitely. I was reading a review of it on in Rolling Stone or maybe BuzzFeed or something, and it was talking about how it just pokes at corporate America. It's good. I mean, the guy who is giving rewards, I'm not giving it
Yeah.
away, but the guy who's giving out the rewards for working well is doing things like, oh, it's a fruit party. Let's bring in a little tray and we got fruit on it. And is poking fun at, oh, if you do a really good job, you get one of those finger things, like one of those things
Oh,
that
the
traps your
cool.
fingers. Oh yeah,
Yeah.
you get to have a finger trap. And so it's really going at the idea of how we reward employees and the ridiculousness of some of it. And I like that. And it's also just an ominous story. It's kind of scary. So yeah, I just finished watching that and I'm looking for the next thing. So I'll find it, I'm sure.
Oh, great. Yeah. My brother was just, he said he loves it. He watches it all the time.
It was good. Yeah, it's good. The season one just was completed. I just finished it a little bit ago. So yeah, I can recommend it, but be ready. It'll leave you. One of my sons said he watched it and he couldn't sleep. So
Oh, wow. Okay.
uh,
Well, I have to say, Denise, this was great. I thank you so much for this. Kizzy, thank you. God's will, it's 1 a.m. I told you about, hold on, I got to show you. This is guy, he's in
oh,
Nigeria.
hi.
I
Oh
told
my
him before we
gosh.
recorded.
It's so cool. Oh my gosh. So cool to meet you. I'm so glad you're here.
He's
Thanks
awesome.
for being here.
He's an HR professional in Nigeria, works for corporate. He's great, just really great.
Oh,
Definitely someone I tell everyone he's great to connect with.
wonderful. Well, I'll try to connect with you on LinkedIn, God's will. I will. I'll look for you.
And Jermaine is suggesting, here's Jermaine. Check out
Oh.
Outer Range on Amazon.
All right. Okay, I will. So, oh gosh, I can't wait to try that. So, Outer Range and
And
Midnight
Midnight Sky.
Sky. And I have Amazon, so I'll look at both of those. Thanks for that, Jermaine. I will. I love
See,
suggestions.
this is the power of LinkedIn, everyone. This is great. So
I know.
Denise,
I
thank
agree.
you so much. It's a pleasure. I'll
Thank
link you up
you.
with people as well, but let me just show your LinkedIn profile. I'm sure,
Perfect.
thank you so much. Kizzy was so nice. Thank you so much, Kizzy, for being a great support. I really
Oh,
appreciate it. Oh, we had someone else. I'm just making sure I'm getting all the chats. This is great. I think we have everyone. And Catherine, thank you so much.
thank you, Catherine. Thanks, everybody. It's just a pleasure. Hope I get to see you all again.
This is great. Thank you so much. Denise, have a great night. And let me just put you up there. I have to spotlight you again. No pressure.
Thanks, everybody. I really appreciate it. I had a great time. Thank you.
Thank you all. Thanks. Good night, Denise. I'll talk to you soon.
Take good care, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank
Bye.
you.